We might get to answer to some of those questions. We'll speak to a lawyer in just a moment. Let me give you Nigel Farage's response. He's written on X. He says the government have used the ECHR against the people of Epping. Illegal migrants have more rights than the British people under Starmer, says Nigel Farage. Let's get a word on all of this. Dr. S. Chelvan is an immigration lawyer. Chelvan, good afternoon to you. Long time no speak. Nice to have you with us. I mean, I'm sure you're always bemused as a lawyer when you hear different views around this. What do you make of Nigel Farage's comments when he says illegal migrants have more rights than the British people, something that was kind of said yesterday in court?
Well, yes, but what the judge, Lord Justice Bean, made a reference to that written argument of the Home Office saying that they were thinking of relying on Article 3 of the European Convention of Human Rights, the issue of destitution, because there are some earlier cases in our House of Lords and Supreme Court on destitution, and they did not pursue that in oral argument, and the Court of Appeal accepted that that was the right thing to do. So for the comment, clearly I don't make any comments regarding any politician, but to say that they use the ECHR is only half accurate, because of course that wasn't relied on in the final case yesterday. So that's very important. This case is a victory for the Home Office, but more importantly, it's a victory for asylum seekers who come to the UK, who are processed. We're not talking about boat crossings, which are found inadmissible and going part of the UK-French treaty, but actually within the process are deemed to be able to go through the process and will not be destitute. And you had that conversation with your employment lawyer about half an hour ago about the rule of law, and that was very, very important. The Court of Appeal made it quite clear that the council, and I do slightly agree with your last interviewer, the council actually acted procedurally unfair. In 2023, the Somani Hotels, which has a contract with the corporate management Home Office contractor, did put an application for change of status, and they only withdrew it in April 2024 because they had no answers, so they withdrew it. But they made another application in May 2025 to have change of status. The council did not even decide that application. Instead, after the 3 arrests in July 2025, they went straight to the court with 1,600 pages of documents and skeletal arguments for the injunction application in August. And the Court of Appeal made it very clear that that was the incorrect way to act in litigation, and that the judge below, Mr. Justice Eyre, who will rehear the matters in relation to the substantive claim over 2 days in mid-October, was wrong to say that Somani Hotels deliberately did nothing to look at change of status. Right. So, and what's very important is no domino effect. Demonstrations will be dealt with by the police, the Home Secretary and local councils to make sure that they're not unlawful. The Court of Appeal were very clear. You will not get to move asylum seekers from hostels via demonstrations. They have very little weight, if anything. Fear of crime has a little weight, but it's not determinative. But if you go and protest outside these hostels, you will not get your way, because that is not an effective way of looking at whether planning applications and change of status and whether you should get a temporary injunction.
But isn't that...
The message is you can't demonstrate to get asylum seekers out of hostels.
So you can demonstrate, but it wouldn't do any good. Would that be the
absolutely. And more importantly, there were 26 arrests and 15 charges laid to those who had violent demonstrations in the Epping Hotel case. I
agree, and nobody wants to see that. And of course, there's been arrests for horrendous offences from some of the people in the hotel.
Yes, absolutely, but 135 people did not engage in any criminal activity. It's very important. They're very much in the minority, and what we need to do is that the Labour government needs to repeal Section 40 of the Nationality and Borders Act 2022, which was the provision which enforced the illegality of those who come to the UK undocumented and claiming asylum. For 70 years, between the signing and ratification of the 1951 Refugee Convention, from 1952 to 2022, 28th of June, they were not illegal or criminal. So we have to get rid of that label.
Why do we have to get... But the problem, as I see it here, Chelvan, is that... And look, you have skin in the game. You're a lawyer. You're an immigration lawyer. But the one thing I think this whole conversation constantly misses is that the desire for some to leave distant parts of the globe and come to the United Kingdom has never been more magnetic than it is now. I'm not talking about whether or not you get a free mobile phone or gym lessons or any of that stuff. It's not that. It's just merely the reality that in the 21st century, People move around. If you lived in Eritrea, it would have been unthinkable 15, 20 years ago that you could go and live in London. I mean, it would have been a sort of dream your grandmother might have told you. Today, hang on, let me just finish that point. Today, it's completely doable. You know it's doable. People want to move around. I don't blame the migrants for wanting to go, I fancy a better life. I live in a complete dump. I don't like my government. I'm going to give it a go. We need to acknowledge that, don't we?
Well, no, we need to acknowledge the fact that I've been working in this field since 1999, 2001, and I've had clients from Eritrea and Ethiopia, and even the US State Department report on Tanzania, your last interview talked about Tanzania, is a very nice country. This is a report of the Donald Trump US State Department report saying significant human rights issues included arbitrary of unlawful killings, disappearances, torture, or cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment. That's a human rights report on Tanzania, dated 2024, which was published a few months ago. So it's very important that your listeners and viewers realise that what you may think is a nice country may not. But importantly, Ian, it's never been the magnetic pull. The number of people who come to claim asylum in the UK is minuscule compared to countries such as even France and Germany.
It's not minuscule. It's not minuscule.
More.
If you look at
thousands more.
It's not minuscule. You know it's not minuscule, Chelvan.
No, you know
it's not minuscule. 52,000 people so far this year on boats alone. That's not minuscule.
No, yes, but that's much compared to the 40, the hundreds of thousands in neighbouring countries, and especially countries like Chad and in sub-Saharan Africa. The greatest number of displaced individuals who go for refugee and surrogate protection are in sub-Saharan Africa, not in the UK. So that's very, very important. This whole nonsense about getting iPads and iPhones and spa hotels. The reason why that individual was 3 years, John was 3 years in that hospital. It's nothing to do with him. It's to do with the system. That Robert Jenrick, the former immigration minister, went on record and said the reason why he won't address the backlog at the time of the murals, of Mickey Mouse murals in that detention centre, he said he won't deal with the backlog because that will provide a pull. So when it comes down to it, it is not the refugees. It's not the people
I said at the beginning that I understand why somebody would say, look, whether you're genuinely leaving Eritrea, Iran, wherever, Albania, wherever it happens to be, Tanzania, anywhere. I don't have any. It's not hard to understand why somebody would want to leave some of those places. They might not always be authentic reasons for a successful asylum claim. I get why somebody would want to do it. There is another reality. You can, walk and chew gum on these things, Chelvan, as you know. And I also happen to believe we can't afford 50,000 people. I think we're a bit full. I also think we have problems with our NHS, with schools, certainly with housing and issues around social cohesion. They can't be written off as an inconvenient point because you're an immigration lawyer. I sense that's what you do, sir.
No, Ian, let's have the cold hard facts. The number of people who are granted asylum by the Home Office initial decision of 48%. It was 52% the year before. These are Home Office statistics published in the last week. But we know that overall, when they go on to appeal, around 70 to 80%. We've had this conversation in the past 4 years, Ian. 70 to 80% are genuine refugees or in need of international protection.
Or that couldn't be proven that they weren't genuine refugees, which is often the case. You know that as well as I do.
No, that's a nonsense. That's a double negative. You accept the rule of law. You either accept the rule of law or you don't.
No, but I accept that the rule of law is also elastic, as you know, as a lawyer. It can be bent in and shaped in all sorts of ways. And if somebody wants to tell you I can't go back to Iran because I'm gay or because I've become Christian, you absolutely know. Please don't look me in the eye and tell me you don't know, you've possibly even advised. That will be a pretty... not surefire, but it will be a pretty compelling case for someone who doesn't want to be extradited.
Sorry, very quick. Extradition is different from deportation.
All right, deportation.
Yeah, but deportation is only criminal acts. That's very important. That's how we get rid of the fear and harm, which has been elevated because we provided these labels of illegal and criminal to those who generally come to the UK to seek asylum. We've got to get rid of that. We can smash the criminal gangs by providing a registration centre in northern France to be able to register those claims, like we did until September 2011. The Home Office had a policy under the previous Labour government and the Lib Dem Conservative coalition up to September 2011. They can go to a neighbouring country and register your asylum claim under the UK Embassy or High Commission, and therefore have a right to asylum. So we can smash the gangs by having a registration centre in northern France, so therefore they're lawfully here. Therefore there will be no boat crossings. But importantly, Ian, it's very important to understand that we are not full We have the falling birth rate, Ian. The third year consecutively low that the birth rate in the United Kingdom is falling.
Shelvan, it's a nice try, but that doesn't quite work. The manifestation of the world we are in is that this country is we've got a £50 billion black hole. We've got people on waiting lists.
Not caused by refugees.
No one's suggesting. I'm not suggesting that is the case.
And
what I'm saying is, you don't invite 50,000 more people. Answer me this if you can. How do you, if you're in Tanzania and you mention human rights abuses, you've got to travel through a lot of countries in Africa before you even get to Europe. And then when you get to Europe, you've got to travel through a whole load more. If I was about to experience impending death from one of the government's shooters that you tell me are out on the street, why would I make such a journey?
OK, now, the point being, why is the journey to the UK? There are two issues here. The reason why refugees, those seeking asylum, come to the UK is cultural, familial, linguistic, historic ties, yeah? But the important thing is, under the Refugee Convention, contrary to what was said in Parliament by a former immigration minister and a former Secretary of State, the Refugee Convention does not require you to apply in the first safe country. It does not. There's nothing in the Refugee Convention.
But you would do, though, wouldn't you? Instinctively, you would do. You're about to be shot in the head if you walk out of your house. You're not going to start becoming discerning. It's not a smorgasbord of choice.
But once you go out of your country, across your border, then you have a subjective right to decide where you feel safe. So, Ian, there are two issues within the country of Tanzania, and once you cross the border. Yes, of course, when you're in Tanzania, you could either go by flight or there are issues, as you know. There's 32,700 individuals currently in hostels. You have the issues that there are 70,532 outstanding applications for asylum to be determined. So those are individuals who not only just come by boats, but also come through the airports and other means as well. So it's important to know there are very different journeys in relation to route to the UK. It's not just by the channel.
Do you think that are you saying then, and I'm not trying to be mischievous, just a final point, if you were living in Tanzania, we seem to have settled on that as the kind of example here, Kenya is right next door. Kenya is a lovely place. Why would you not instinctively, as an African, go, I tell you what, I'm getting out of here, I'm going to Kenya, or I'm going to travel 12,000 miles and try and live in Ipswich? Many people, that doesn't. It's a reasonable question, right?
Yes, and Kenya's not a nice country. Go and look at the Kenya Human Rights Report. I mean, I've been doing cases regarding Kenya for many years. So that's why it's very important to look at the actual facts. It's very, very easy to look at what it's like nice in the holiday brochures or on the websites for you and I as global North tourists to go to those countries. But the real hard facts for individuals in those countries is sometimes a completely
Mozambique, Zambia, Malawi, these are all neighbouring countries. Are they all hellholes?
But Ian, with the way I'm here, I'm not a politician. I'm just here to define the law. The Refugee Convention makes it quite clear. You can apply for asylum in the country. As an individual,
all right. I hear it. Chelvan, we have to stop there for time. Thank you, Dr. S. Chelvan, immigration lawyer, with us on the programme. As you will have extrapolated from that chat, what does an immigration lawyer and a brick wall have in common? I think you can supply the answer.